Good afternoon, class. Hello. I hope you
Good
can.
afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
wise to start now. I think I've waited enough for people to join. So let's move on to the business of today. So who can remind us where we stopped in our last class?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon,
Yeah,
sir.
good afternoon. I can hear you.
Okay. I think the last lecture was introduction to law, introduction to Nigerian law and legal system. So we had the concepts of legal system, what legal system is, the basic definitions, the classification of law. So where we stop is you gave us what is legal system. If I'm right, it's like 2-to-1 definition. So the one I jotted was a legal system refers to the procedure or process for interpreting and enforcing the law. That is where I stop. So I think where we will be, I think today will be either the basic or the classification of law. So I don't know.
Okay, that means you followed to a point and you didn't know where we concluded. Can anybody help us to build on what Kemi has said? Any other person?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, last time we stopped at Nigeria legal system, which you said is the totality of law or legal rules and machinery which operates in Nigeria as a sovereign nation.
Now, how can we stop in that kind of a place? When I'm asking you about where we stopped, I'm asking about the last topic that was discussed, not what was said. What under what subtopic can you classify that? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, someone wants to say something.
Yes, please, sir. Thank you. So my name is Thompson. The last where we stopped is at the concept of legal system. The concepts of legal system proper, because before then you analyze some subtopics under that, but we ended at the concept of legal system proper. Thank you.
All right. That's okay. So we move forward then by looking at what is law. I'm sure I gave you a rundown of what the course content is, but today, maybe after the class, I'm going to send a soft copy to your class rep so that you can follow us while we teach. All right, so today we move forward by looking at the idea of law, and that will lead us to the definition of law as a subtopic that we have mentioned earlier on. And why we have to talk about the idea of law is to be able to understand basically what is the foundation behind having to put forward a definition of law. Because if you do not have the foundation to why we need to define law, you may not be able to appreciate the concept or the intention and the effort to define what law is. So I'm going to begin by saying that in our everyday life, we come in contact with law. Whether we know it or not, we come in contact with law. And if we come in contact with law, how then do we identify or do we determine what our interaction is with the law? Or how then do we determine that what we are dealing with, it's at its connection or relationship with law? So therefore, we will look at the idea of law, that is law and its role in a society. I'm sure once we have been able to identify the role of law in a society, it can now give us a proper foundation to understanding what law is. So all over the world, even in the societies where we consider to be the freest societies, if we can say that there are societies such as that, when we refer to a state, a community as a free society, I think the only area that that applies to is the fact that many people will be free to do some things that are not generally acceptable in some communities. For example, we'll say to an extent that the United States is some form of freest society, because in that state where people can do what they like to a large extent, especially getting themselves involved in things that are quite strange to us as a people. Now you can just wake up today and say, I want to marry my dog, and so be it. I want to marry myself, so be it. But in a crime where there is law, there are acts or activities that the law prohibits. So that's why in delving into this topic, we say that even in those societies where we can tag to be a free society, they have laws in place. Apart from the fact that they have laws, they also have law enforcement mechanisms. And I remember that I was talking about something like that in this class, that when you see a last man official in Lagos, something suddenly tells you you have to behave yourself and you have to mind where you drive. Otherwise, you may be dragging yourself into some issues. When you see that in a society there is the correctional center, that is the prison, you know that that place is not kept for everybody. It's meant for those who may have gone against the law of the land. Consequently, we classify those things as law enforcement mechanisms, even though they do not have hands or legs, but their existence creates some form of awareness and the bar help to prevent people from engaging in criminality. So in every society, there is law. There is the mechanism that help to enforce it. And we also have sanctions, which can also be put as punishment for every offense that the law in that community must have created. And that is to say that sometimes when you want to do what you desire, you look at the consequences of what your actions may be. Meaning that as a citizen, you have your desires. But states, the government, also have the duty to control your desires. On a light note, when somebody does something that you do not like, person has hurt you, you are angry, and you just feel like killing the person. In the heat of that, your anger, one of the things that will prevent you from killing that individual is the fact that if you exercise that power to kill, you'll probably not sleep in your house that day. So meaning that what you desire, there are instruments of states that will prevent you from doing them. And of course, if that instrumentality is not in place, everyone in the society will be free to do what he or she likes. And then once that happens, it leads to chaos, it leads to anarchy, and it looks to it pushes the society into a lawless state where everybody is free to do what he or she likes. So therefore, in every society, law regulates human behaviors and prescribe the rules of human conduct. I hope you can hear me, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
I hear you.
All right. Thank you. So law regulates human behaviors and also put in place rules that you must obey. Apart from that, it puts the basic structure of the society in place. It brings about standard, what is expected. It brings about conditions of doing what you must do. Recently, for those of us who are current, we'll notice that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria imposed the state of emergency in Rivers State, which is a component state in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And before he could do that, he relied on the section of the Constitution, Section 308, 305, that gives him that authority to do so. Meaning that if there was no provision of such in our laws, the president could not have gone to do what he did, even though there are criticisms as to whether or not the declaration was lawful or not. But he claimed that he needed to do what he did based on the provision of the law. So, meaning that law itself also regulates the states. And that's why many a times you discover that the government are not really free to do what they want to do, because people may likely react and condemn the act, or even protest, or even go to the extent of withdrawing whatever action that the government wants to do. So what we are saying in essence is that law exists in every society. And why is law very important in the society? Law is important in the society in order to ensure orderliness. And I say with all simplicity that without law and law enforcement agencies, the society will be in disorder. Meaning that right living will be very impossible, because it is either you wake up and you discover that your car that you parked outside is no longer there, and you cannot raise up your voice to say anything, or you just wake up, you discover that your house has been sealed, and another person is intending to take over the property. But because of the existence of law in the society, acts that individuals are free to do are governed or regulated by the presence of law in a society. So what it means, therefore, in a society is that law exists in the overall interest of everyone in a society. And in order for the society to continue peaceably, for normal life to prevail in the society, law is therefore needed. Law is needed for you to enforce your rights. Law is needed for you to enforce your freedom. Law is needed to control the activities of states. So, looking at this subtopic, we will therefore say that in order for normal life to continue, what we mean by normal life? Things that are normal, lives that are normal, like probably what is generally acceptable in a society, for that to continue, and for businesses to thrive, for legitimate activities of life to continue, there must be in place 4 major things. Number 1 is law. Number 2 is the courts. Number 3 is the personnel of the law. And number 4 is administration of justice. So those 4 things are crucial, or their existence are crucial to the observance of normal life in the society. Like I said earlier, and I repeat, that if all of these things are not in place, the society will become a lawless place. So, having said that, then the question then we'll ask is, what is law? And we need to establish in this class, for purposes of understanding and laying a good foundation for this course, that scholars have tried to define law. But I say to you in this class that there is no single definition of law that is authoritative enough or that is free from criticism. But as we speak, there are several definitions of law that we can refer to, which probably for the next 2 classes, we will be talking about the definitions in this class. So that is to say that even though we have said that there is no single definition of law, but there are plethora of definitions of law that have been advanced. So, but in order for us to set a good standing for ourselves as a people in this class, we can generally define law to mean a rule. Simply R-U-L-E. We can also define law to mean a rule of behavior. We can also, for the purpose of this class, define law to mean the rules and regulation of a particular people. Then, lastly, we can define law as the whole system of rules of a country. Having said that, let's look at few definitions from the scholars that we mentioned earlier. The first man we are going to look at, his name is Herman Klockman. Herman Klockman. He defined law as the whole reservoir of rules on which judges draw for their decision. That is the way this man has defined law. I don't want to make some comments yet on his decision, to define law in that light. But let me repeat that definition again for the purpose of those who are writing. Herman Klockman said that law is the whole reservoir of rules on which judges draw for their decisions. Number two, an eminent English jurist said, his name is William Blackstone. He said, law is the rule of action which is prescribed by some superior and which the inferior is bound to obey. That is according to Sir William Blackstone, that it is the rule of action which is prescribed by some superior and which the inferior is bound to obey. Another definition put forward by another scholar by name John Austin is that law is a command made by a sovereign for an inferior being, and which the inferior being has a duty to obey or suffer penalty. These are scholars in the field of law that have provided this definition. Another one, before we move on, is another scholar by name Oliver Wendell Holmes. He said law is defined as the prophecies of what the courts will do in fact and nothing more pretentious. That's the way Oliver Wendell Holmes defined law. That law is the prophecies of what the court will do in fact and nothing more pretentious. And what we can see from all of this definition is that law is rule which regulates how persons and bodies should behave in the society. Because when you look at all that these scholars must have said, even though I'm going to be asking you your thoughts about this definition, because we have said that there is none of this definition, both the one we have prescribed for this class and the one provided by scholars, that are free from criticism. I would like to hear your view to probably show whether you understand what we are dealing with or not. But in conclusion on what is the topic, subtopic, what is law or definition of law, we say that law is a code of conduct for persons, bodies, and society in general. That law is a code of conduct for persons, bodies, and society in general. Now, what do you think about the definitions that we have put forward by those scholars? What do you think are their shortcomings? Before you answer, by the way, how many of you have gone to my YouTube channel to listen to my past lectures on this topic, on this course? How many of you? You can just raise your hand. Let me see you. Nobody. Nobody? I think you will do yourself some good if you can go there. Okay? Go there and listen to these topics, and then you'll be far more abreast with what you need to know before you come to this class. Because with that, it will have given you like a background information. More so that in your class, you have just one hour. This is a course that the normal law student is having 3 hours per week. So if you are having 1 hour, then you know that we cannot drag for too long. Then you need to do a lot of work. But thank God for that, for the recordings of the past lectures. And like I said, I'm going to share the link with you in a short while. You can go there, subscribe to my YouTube channel, so that if I'm teaching this course anytime, you can join, and then you have you'll be able to refresh yourself. And when you get to the channel, you look for topics. You look for classes that are being held on Nigerian Legal System 1 or Introduction to Law and Nigerian Legal System, which is the title for your class. Okay? Which is a title for your class. So you can look for any of those lectures. Once you can notice that it's titled Introduction to Law and Nigerian Legal System or Nigerian Legal System, just know that it's for this class. And then all you just need to do is if you click on any discussion that is done there is on any of the topics that we have done or that we are going to do in this class. But if you want to really follow them sequentially based on the way that I'm teaching it here, you can go by the date, the earliest date, then you move on up and up like that. So with that, you will be able to, listen to the lectures. So I'm going to share the link with you now in the chat box. You can click on that, and after the lecture, you will be at liberty to listen to the lectures as many times as possible. Okay? Okay, so I'll share the link with you on the chat box so you can access it. Click on it, subscribe, then you'll be good to go. All right, so can I have your thoughts now on those definitions? What do you think are the identifiable criticisms attached to this definition from your own view, not what you think is right, but from your own our understanding. That will help us to, do justice to this topic. Yes, the floor is open. Anyone? Hello, class. Anyone? Yes, go ahead, speak.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
According to what's it called, William Blackstone,
Yes.
says law is the rule of action which is prescribed by the superior for the inferior to obey is really weird because it's like telling the king and the slave it's giving olden days rule or something. I don't understand. How could that be a definition of law? Sorry.
No. Feel free. We're in a class, and the point you are making are actually valid. That's your own.
Yes.
Yes.
Just the superior giving the inferior rules to obey is. I don't think that is supposed to be a definition of law.
Okay.
Society that we live in now.
Now, let me ask, why do you think that may not be an appropriate definition of law?
Because it's
Because I think it's weird and I don't know the word to use.
Say it in your mother tongue.
Okay, like he's giving slavery or something. I don't know. The people that are inferior does not have a voice, or I don't know.
That what you have just said now is one of the major criticism of that topic. That meaning that the inferior do not have a say. But is it supposed to be like that? That the inferior, or which probably the followers, do not have a say? That is one major criticism of that school, of that definition. Yes, thank you very much. Is it Kemina or Laok or something? Yes, another person. Who else is in this class? Okay, no one is willing to speak. Yes.
You said law is a goal of conduct.
Yes, sir.
Law is a goal of conduct in the. I don't really hear that word very well.
I said it's a code of conduct for persons, bodies, and the society in general. Now, in order not to waste time, or just that some of you probably know what you want to, you know what we're talking about, but you don't want to say it. But is in saying it, is in having this interaction that you get to know the subject properly. Now, when a man was saying that law is the whole reservoir of rules on which judges draw their decision, does it mean that everything about law is about court judgments? It's not. There are other aspects of life that does not include or involve the courts. There are people who have lived 50 years, 70 years and died, and they never had anything to do with the courts. Look at what Williams Blackstone said, that it is a rule of action which is prescribed by some superior and which inferior is bound to obey. The question is, who are the inferior? Are we not all born equals? Who are the inferiors? And what gave the superior, so to speak, the power to classify another person as inferior? So on and so forth. John Austin said that law is a command made by a sovereign for an inferior being to obey. The question is, let's say the government is the sovereign, why the citizens are the inferior? Now, a law is a command. A command is what you do not have power over. You have to, is either you say yes or nothing. Is that how law is supposed to be? Yet, all of this definition may make some sense in that the government can make law for us as citizens, and all the best we can do is to obey. But at the same time, that means that we have not been able to get a good definition of law that is without any form of criticism. So therefore, we will look at some school of thoughts. Okay? We'll look at some school of thought and how they define law, how they explain law, in order for us to have a better understanding of the concept of law. Okay? And then the question, therefore, we want to ask is that, what do we mean by schools of thought? Schools, as in SCHOOLE, of OF, thought, as in THOUGHT, school of thought. Now, when we're talking about school of thought, we are saying that we are referring to various schools or ideas that have, or we are referring to some kind of philosophers or views represented or presented by a group of people. Okay? School of thought represents either beliefs accepted as authoritative by some group of schools or by some group of people. And then it can also mean the views of philosophers who define law from a particular perspective. Now, if you look at the definition that we have provided before, and you find out where any of those, the kind of profession that those people are involved in, you probably understand why they gave the definition they gave for law. Meaning that your expertise, your profession, your training is likely to influence the kind of definition that you put forward by law. So to speak, every school of thought is influenced by their beliefs. The way an historian will give definition to law will be different from how a lawyer or a judge will provide his own definition. The same thing applies to the way that a religious man, whether a clergy, is also going to give his own definition. All of these, as we progress in this class, we will see them. But of course, this is to give us a deeper understanding of what law is and to give you an advantage as someone who has engaged in this course to be able to appreciate what we are doing. And then, so that you as an individual can, have a deeper understanding of law. So the first school of thought we are going to look at is the natural law school. Okay? The natural law school. The natural law school talks about or try to define law or to see law as what is fair or just. That is the way the natural law school of thought define or see law. I want to believe you are following me. They see law as what flows from divine or supernatural origin. Why is it natural? That it was not something that anybody made. Rather, it was something that existed naturally, that we met on earth, and then that it was not a product of what you and I made, but what has become a natural occurrence that has been in our life without our intervention. So this school of thought believe that The law is only valid if it conforms with the natural things. But the question then we'll ask is that, what are these natural things? Let's put that aside. This school of thought, the natural law school, proposes, they base their reasoning or beliefs on what is known as divine theory. That is a belief that man are totally subject to the will of God, meaning that whatever is law must conform with what has been made available by the will of God or by the divine being, which is God in this instance. So they believe that natural law, that law emanates from nature. Okay, that is the belief of the natural law school. Now, look at this belief of the natural law school that says that law is what exists in nature. And then look at the definition given by John Austin that said law is a command. There are two different things, probably contradictory or does not even make sense. But these different individuals, they have their own views of law based on their own understanding. Now, who are the people behind the natural law school? Example is St. Thomas Aquinas. That's one of the proponents, that the people we call proponents of each school. St. Thomas Aquinas. We have Grotius. Grotius is also another exponent or proponent, or those behind the natural law school. Okay? And the good thing about it here is that the natural law school believes that the modern society that we run now rests on natural law. For example, the government of Nigeria, by virtue of the law of Nigeria, made the federal government to be the custodian of all the natural resources that God has given to us. And it's expected that the government will use it for the benefit of all. When they put all of them together, they use it to construct roads, they use it to do a lot of things for the good of humanity. That is one of the natural things that ought ordinarily to happen, even though what we see now is probably the opposite, where one man wants to carry all. But the natural law school proponent believes that the modern society, the ideal society, runs on the natural law, where you have fundamental human rights, because it is not government that gave you right to life. It is not government that gave you right to move to where you want to go. It is not government that gave you right to be a member of any religion or to be a member of any social group. It's a natural thing that comes from the mind of every man. And then the natural law school believes that the natural law is the foundation for human rights. For example, right to life. Even though it's written in our constitution, we know, whether we did not read any book at all, that it was God who gave man life. Or that it was, even for those that do not even believe in God, let's say that it was that supreme being that created man and brought man into existence. And the natural law school people also believe that the normal democracy that we're talking about rests on the natural law. And at the same time, it brings about equality. That is, God created everybody equally, and therefore there should be no form of disparity or any form of partiality in our treatment. And then they believe in what is known as natural justice. Natural justice, for example, what we say when two people are in a fight, you hear the other party. There is only fair that you hear both parties before you can make a fair judgment. And then that you cannot be a judge in your own cause. If you have a case, you are the one that is judging yourself, you are the one that is condemning the other people. The concept of natural law or natural view perspective of law believes in natural justice, not just being a command to one inferior. These are the beliefs of the natural law school. And as acceptable as the natural law school view of law may be, they also have their own weaknesses or criticism. That was why when Aisha was talking, she said she does not believe or does not understand why some are the inferiors or the people called inferior do not have a say. Yes, the natural law believes that everybody should have a say. But the weakness that is identified or the criticism that is identified with this group of people or the view of the natural law school is the question of what is fair. So I ask this class now, what is happening between Wike and Fubara? Some of the things that we are seeing. Is it fair? This class will probably be divided into two. So we say, we hear that it was the Wike government that made Fubara governor. And then he ought to have kept the agreement they had. Another person will say, why will he keep an agreement to continue to have some benefit alone? That is the state for the two of them alone. Now, that if the man is not carrying out the agreement, is now fighting to do what is right, that is it not better for the people of Rivers State? There will be series of arguments. So the question then, therefore, is what is right or what is fair? It's difficult to determine what is fair. Because before you see every man take a decision, he believes that that is what is fair. In the Yoruba that says that if a chicken or a fowl should throw your drugs away, if drug is the right word to use, I don't know, that you should destroy his egg. Oh, you say it's right now. You spoil my things, then I spoil your things. To some people, that is fair. But if that is fair indeed, then probably all of us will not be in existence by now. God ought to have killed all of us. But the thing is that, will it be fair on both us on the side of God? It's difficult to determine what is fair. That's why we are saying that the natural law school, as beautiful as they have presented law to be, it's difficult to determine what is right or fair. And then another example is Christians who wage crusade against those they believe as heretic, and Muslims who wage jihad war against all those who they believe does not believe in God's law. Probably all of them believe that they are doing what is right. But the question is it fair? How do you determine what is fair? Is fundamentally an issue for the natural law school. So, despite the fact that we say, okay, they are talking about trying to define law as what is fair or just, but the question then, therefore, is how do we determine what is fair and what is just? So that is all for the natural law school of thought as a school of thought. As a matter of fact, we are going to be discussing about 6 different schools of thought to know what they feel about the definition of law. We have talked about the natural law school. The second law school of thought we're going to talk about is the positive law school. After the positive law school, we talked about the historical law school. After the historical law school, then we look at the realist school. The realist, as in what people call realist, R-E-A-L-I-S-T. Then, lastly, we look at the utilitarian school of thought. These are the various schools of thought that we are going to look at in an attempt to define law or to understand what law really is. And thereafter, we'll be able to talk about the various classification of law that we have. Okay? By virtue of our time now, we are bound to stop at this junction. I would like to ask if you have questions, or if your coordinator can confirm to me that you are free for the next period and you want us to take maybe another 30 minutes, let me know. Yes. Oloyede.
Okay, so
So
we'll be having another class by 4:15 actually. So
All
we'll,
that's okay.
uh,
Okay, we can stop here then so that you can prepare for your next class.
do you have all in your YouTube, sir?
You said what?
Do you have all this in your YouTube, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Sir,
okay.
sorry, the last school of thought, the last name.
Utilitarian.
The utilitarian. Thank you, sir.
Utilitarian school of thoughts. Okay? So like I said, if you go to my YouTube, look out for look out for recordings with the name Nigeria Legal System. What you will see is like NIG.legal system. You will also see intro to law. Okay? You will see intro to law. You will see Nigeria legal system is the same topic. So if you content, I'm sure by the time you listen to all, you'll have had maybe 2 different lectures on one topic in order for you to understand what we are talking about properly. And the truth of the matter is that you do not have so much time. So therefore, please do well to subscribe to that channel, watch the lectures there, jot down your questions, so that when we come to this class, you can also understand some things as you are speaking, more so that this is not your direct course. Many of you see law to be a very difficult course. So if you listen to it over and over before the class, it is an added advantage for you, which may help you to ask questions and to also understand better. And I request humbly that you subscribe to that YouTube channel, share with your friends to do so. All right, so thank you very much. Is there any other question before I will end the class? And don't bother about your attendance, it's being taken automatically. All right, so in the absence of any question or contribution, we stop here for today. And when we are going to start next time, the topic will be the positive law school. Okay? The positive law school. So that should not be difficult for anybody to remember when we reconvene again.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Kemi, you want to say something?
Sorry, please.
What?
One of the definition of Oliver Wendell.
Oh, Oliver Wendell Holmes. Wendell.
Yeah, can't tell me. Okay, when they're whole, okay. He
Yeah.
said the prophecy of what the court will do. and nothing more pretentious. I am not getting that. Nothing
Okay.
more pretentious. Please, can
Okay.
you just enlighten me a little bit?
All right. When you go to court, you have a disagreement with your neighbor, and the agreement has been broken. There's a breach. And then you went to court, your lawyer said so much. The lawyer said the law is that if you give somebody a contract, that he has a duty to deliver the contract irrespective of whatever may be happening. And then your neighbor said the reason why he couldn't perform the contract was because he was scammed and he lost all his money. And your lawyer is saying that that does not concern anybody. You have taken the contract, you have taken the money, you must perform. And both of you made your case before the court. And the court says, yes, the law says that once you have been paid for a contract, you are duty bound to perform it. However, in this case, this woman or this man could not perform this contract because he was scammed. I therefore rule that the period within which the contract should be performed is hereby increased so that he can have time to put himself together and perform the contract. By that judgment of that court, the meaning of that law that your lawyer was quoting is now meaning that even though the person is not able to perform within the period, he will still be under that obligation to perform the contract, maybe some few weeks or few months outside the agreed period. Do you understand now? So that it is the actual interpretation.
Well understood, sir.
Yeah, you said what?
I said well understood now.
Yeah. So what we are saying about that is actually that it is the interpretation that the court gives to a particular law that is the law, not what is written in the books. All right. So if you listen to more lectures on that, I'm sure you will hear the examples that are provided for that particular topic. All right. So thank you very much for listening. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.